Hello, everybody.
Hello out there. We's here. It's hotter than the blue blazes. Uh, and I'm especially beat. I spent 2 days in the mountains working on the undisclosed location, and you may be surprised to hear that even though I couldn't do much of the climbing and all that kind of stuff, my son and I and Ma were able to get the studs up, not studs, the trusses up, and we got the plywood down, and we got the felt paper down, and we got the 90-pound roofing down. And my son, like I say, did most of it. I was on the ground cutting and handing stuff up as much as I could. But with it being hot, I can't handle heat. What's up, Squad?
Truss, isn't that also like some sort of like brace they would give people when they had like a hernia or a pulled muscle or something?
Yeah, you put trusses up so your roof don't fall down.
No. I mean, seriously though, isn't truss a medical thing as well?
Yeah, they have hemorrhoid trusses, or hernia trusses.
Yeah, there was a whole skit on the original season of SNL with Dan Aykroyd where he was a male prostitute. And he had to, take off all these different trusses.
Yeah. Oh, Jack's there. Yo, what's up, people? We's up.
Jack lives over in Ohio, correct?
Yeah, old Cleveland.
He posted some pictures on the Facebook about that Trump rally over there that had a gazillion people there.
All gazillion of them, huh? Unlike the overly populated Biden rallies, right?
Oh, I mean, I guess they had so many people there. They had an overflow area that looked like a football stadium worth of people. That just goes to show you that there's certain things that are not being told the truth about.
Well, I know and you know, but the officials will want us to tell you because they've been bought off. There was all kinds of voter fraud out there, and I see the Department of Justice, I believe, has announced they're going to take Georgia to court for their new voter rights legislation, because I want the opinion of people out there, because I think I'm missing something here. All that Georgia is doing, it's not declaring you can't vote. It's not declaring blacks can't vote. All it's doing is saying you cannot use mail-in ballots unless you're going to be absentee or have a health issue. Limit the number of drop-off boxes, so whatever. And if you want to vote, you have to go to the precinct, and all votes will be counted after the polls close. Okay? But the news media keeps saying it's going to make it hard for the blacks to go vote. Well, how in the hell is it going to make it hard for them to go vote? They got two legs. Some of them drive, don't they? They got buses, don't they?
I read an article here today, I think. It was, they were quoting, he was either a constitutional scholar or a law professor out of, I want to say the Virginia area. And he made some very interesting points at how this could come back and bite the media and the liberal elite in the ass, because when they start with this DOJ digging into everything, probably start finding a lot of stuff that they don't want to hear.
Well,
but then all of a sudden that'll be dropped.
Yeah.
Pop the magic dragon and go away.
Voter fraud is being dropped. All the chain of judges going up through when it was first brought up. Now there's no evidence whatsoever. But in Pennsylvania, we had 250,000 more votes cast than registered voters. That's not evidence. That sounds like 250,000 pieces of evidence that somebody was voting that wasn't supposed to vote.
Yeah, a lot of the judges wouldn't hear these cases because of, it wasn't so much the lack of evidence all the time. It was a procedural thing, or it was the wrong court, or this lawyer didn't dot this I or cross this E, so it was
sidestepping everything and taking all the monkey step loopholes they could find.
Yep, that way they didn't have to look into it. They could just rubber stamp President Biden. Speaking of President Biden, I know I'm kind of getting off topic here. I saw that he's not going to represent America over in the Beijing Olympics. He's sending his wife.
Good, Leonard Peeper.
I'm just thinking to myself, what is that saying to the people on the world stage where the president is so hopelessly beleaguered that he can't do his job.
I was going to say he's not mentally competent to handle it.
And did you see his idiotic press conference where he kept whispering into the microphone?
No, I didn't see that.
Oh, Jesus. He was talking about this, that, and the other. Then he would like lean in. Listen, people. Listen. And the press was there were cameramen showing the reporters were going like, what the hell is this guy doing?
You guys asked for it. You supposedly put him in there. You got what you asked for. Just remember that. If you want to know who's responsible, bend over and look at your ass because that's who's responsible. Uh-oh. A weather fap. You got a warning coming in here? Are you playing with the weather?
I was not.
Well, my computer we're still on the air, but there it's back. Something's screwing around with my computer. You better quit it. You're liable to get more pooper than you thought. Anyhow. Yeah, there was a couple of doctors that...
it's like we're buffering or something. Okay, there we go. Yeah, every time, when Trump was walking down it was a steep slope at some political rally or some event, and it had been raining, and he slipped. Boom. The media was, he's not physically capable. 25th, isn't the 25th Amendment?
Yeah.
25th Amendment. Yeah. But, Biden falls up the stairs of the jet pretty regular. Oh, that's just old Joe. Joe. Whispering into the microphone, saying, rambling. Blah, 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 blah.
Well, that's what these doctors are saying. He needs to be examined by a team of doctors who deal with the mind, not psychiatrists, but the other stuff.
Yeah, there's.
He is not competent to continue to hold office. If he's not competent to continue to hold office after he's only been there for 4 months, he was never competent to start with.
Oh, heck no. He how many rallies did he do? How many speeches did he do? This COVID thing just let him do his campaign from his basement. Yeah. Sleeping. He'd work like 2 hours a day and then sleep. How many people who worked around Trump said that they couldn't keep up with him? He was working 20 hours a day, and then they made him quit working because they needed him to be on for the next day, but he just keep going.
Coherent or whatever the case may be. And Jack is basically, yeah, I didn't see it. So I'm only going by what I've been hearing. And at his last press briefing, and he acted that way, then he is definitely a 25th Amendment.
At least do due diligence.
Candidate. Okay. But the only problem is, he goes, we get Kamala Harris. And that bitch, lying sack of shit that she is, who's been supposedly for 3 months now the head of the crisis at the border, and hasn't even been down to the border yet, other than the fact that she went to Texas to El Paso. They're not down to near San Antonio in that area. They are where the problem exists. And in fact, we have a story about that from one of the believe it is one of the heads of the border patrol down there, that said she's not going to learn anything or do anything about the border because she didn't come to the border. So,
you might want to let the people know that we may not be on for the full 2 hours.
Yeah, we may not make it the full 2 hours, guys, because I spent the last all day yesterday and today out in the hot weather over here and doing work on our undisclosed location, and it is kind of cooked me a little bit. I've been pouring water in, but it doesn't seem to be helping much. Get dry just a drop of the hat. But we got a lot of work done. Now when the Independence Day weekend comes up, Mother and I can go up and, since I don't have to climb a ladder, her and I can work at putting the floor joists in, and then put the plywood down for the floor. And then we can start framing in the walls, which is not that big, so we ought to be able to frame in on Saturday, get the framing all done, and then.
When you say frame in, what do you mean by that?
Okay, we make a skeleton wall to put up. Okay, and it has your wall studs, just like we were doing with the rafters. We put the rafters up, the joists up. Okay, and like the floor joists where we put the brackets in. Well, you're doing the same thing, but only you're using 2x4s to go up vertically.
So you make a section of 2x4 frame, then tip that up
in place, nail it in place.
Okay.
And then you cover the outside with whatever you're going to cover it with.
Are you still going to use human skin for the outside?
There's a shortage of it.
Oh, never mind then. Perhaps another time.
After World War II, the Allies hijacked the supplies that the Germans had.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I imagine that's exactly it about China and Russia waiting. And actually, I'll tell you the truth. Out there, I used to think that we'd be having Chinese troops or Russian troops on our soil, but I don't think they have to. If Kamala Harris gets in there, the Chinese will move through Southeast Asia like shit through a goose. And then Russia will move through Europe and meet somewhere in the Mediterranean with the Chinese and take over the whole world except for the United States. They don't even have to send any troops here.
No.
And all they have to do is blockade us and not sell us anything.
We already get about 90% of our medical supplies from China.
Well, that's part of it.
Everything else.
That's why we're having problems with cars.
Cars,
yeah.
Automobiles?
Yeah. Yeah, cars. They, the chip is made over in China, and our car manufacturers having trouble getting them. That's the chip that controls the computer or makes the computer run. And as I was talking to my buddy Scott down in Pittsburgh, talking to my other buddy Scott, we were talking here the other day. And we were talking about that, and I says, with as sophisticated as our military equipment is, it would not be surprising to me that the chips would be breaking down and the military wouldn't have any to replace them with. And there is no redundancy system. The average GI is not going to be able to take and manually sight his gun. Okay, figure out windage, elevation, and yardage, and be able to. He might be able to fire, but he doesn't have the skills or not taught the redundancy method of doing it.
Well, what's going to happen is like what happened at the one machine shop I worked at. Some of the machinery were pre-World War II. These monster bollard lathes and whatnot. When they started having trouble with this one, they ended up calling a guy who knew a guy who used to work on it back in the 40s. The guy was like 972 years old. Brought him in with his walker, and he sat there and step by step told the mechanic or the maintenance guy, no, you got to change that gear out with this. And he knew it right then and there, but they had to bring this old guy in because all the smarty bricks engineers, I've never seen that. It's not in my book.
Yeah. My dad used to hate that about the new employees for the railroad, especially the yard managers. They went to school and got the college degree on management, but they didn't know diddly squat on how things actually worked out in the yard. And my dad got into a fight with the one a couple of times, and he threatened him. He says after the second time, the guy says, well, I had to turn you in and write you up for misconduct and all that kind of stuff. And my dad told him, he says, you better get the fuck out of my face. My dad never used the F word very often, but if he did, you knew he was pissed. So he told me, he said, you better get out of my face. He says, you're younger than I am, and you're more spry than I am, and you might be able to beat the shit out of me, but all I want is a little bit of your blood. And about 6 months later, they bought my dad off, early retirement.
There was a feller I was in the Army with, and we were talking, he was from Pennsylvania as well, and we were talking about all the different relatives we had that worked for the railroad. I think his family was over on the other side of the state, regardless. But he was telling me about how his granddad, when he'd get a snootful, they talked about they had this one yard boss or one manager that everybody hated because he was just such a miserable bastard. And he's like, I don't know if this is true, big man. That's what he always called me, big man. But my granddad told me that everyone on their crew drew lots, and whoever drew the short lot had to go over, and as the guy was walking down inspecting the one coal car, pull this switch, and it dropped a couple hundred tons of coal on him. He's like, my granddad was the one who drew the lot. It bothered him till his dying day.
Well, if it actually happened like it did, probably did.
I mean, a lot of stuff back in the old school union days, if you weren't pulling your weight on the machine line and you're not getting paid rate because you're dicking off, they'd meet you in the parking lot. They'd bust your hands.
Well, my dad was a conductor of the crew. Not in the conductor sense of the passenger trains. He did that too. But the head of the crew on the train was called the conductor. Okay?
Just to throw this in there, the railroad has all kinds of weird. Yeah. There's conductors, there's engineers, but the conductor's not an engineer, but the engineer might be a conductor. I don't know. Yeah. Whatever.
Depends on how far up the ladder he's gone and taking the test to get to wherever. But anyway, my dad was a fair man. If you did your job, he didn't have no problems. And but one thing he would not tolerate, and that was if you showed up to go on a run and you were drunk, he would not take you. He left many a men, well, I shouldn't say many, he left a couple of guys and a couple of them several times stranded over in Kent, Ohio, till they sobered up. Then they had to deadhead home with the next crew. And but he would not allow them on there because the people say, well, what's so dangerous about working on the railroad while they're trained? Well, you've got to climb up the cars. And if there's a refrigerator car, you have to climb up on the refrigerator car and check the refrigeration unit every so often to make sure it's working. Okay, and you have to watch for hot boxes. Hot boxes of brake that went on and it clamped on it and is making sparks, because then that would cause grass fires. And so you had to watch for all that kind of stuff. Or you had to watch for a brake hose break and shut the train down. So then they had to be able to go fix it. And it just goes on and on and on. They used to have a caboose where they had two guys there that could look at the rear end up towards the front. Then up in the front, they had the conductor, the brakeman, the fireman, and the engineer, and they could look back on the from the front towards the back to watch for these hot boxes or any signs of any fires and stuff. But that got changed. They got rid of the cabooses because the the companies called it feather bedding. So,
All right, enough of the railroad. I want to read a story originally put out by the Western Journal. It's on the Federalist Papers Project. It says the retired four-star general demands Tucker Carlson be fired for slamming top U.S. generals on TV. In 2020, if you wanted to get a Democrat outrage, you'd have someone in President Donald Trump's administration speak ill of the media. In 2021, if you want to get a Democrat outraged, have a member of the media speak ill of someone in President Joe Biden's administration. In this regard, Fox News host Tucker Carlson seemed to be a prominent target, particularly when he criticizes how the military has gone woke. On his program Thursday, he criticized Joint Chiefs of Staff head General Mark Milley, for his remarks defending critical race theory training and saying he wanted to understand white rage before a congressional hearing. Carlson called Milley obsequious and said he knows who to suck up to, and he's more than happy to do it. Feed him a script and he will read it. In one of the more jocund parts of the segment, I don't know why these words are in here, pardon me. After a clip was played featuring Milley noting that reading about critical race theory didn't make him a critical race theorist. I've read Mao Zedong, I've read Karl Marx, I've read Lenin. That doesn't make me a communist, Milley said. Carlson laughed and said Milley was not just a pig, he's stupid. For that, a retired four-star general wants Carlson fired. In a tweet on Friday afternoon, Barry McCaffrey, a former drug czar during the administration of President Bill Clinton, now a military analyst with the NBC News and MSNBC, asked why Fox News hadn't terminated Carlson for making those remarks. Let this sink in, Tucker Carlson on live Fox TV called General Mark Milley, the chairman of the JCS, stupid and a pig, McCaffrey tweeted. Why hasn't he been terminated? Who talks like this about a public official? Mark Milley, Princeton, Columbia, years in combat, yada, yada, yada. Well, it seems to me that that's pretty much what the media did for 4+ years during the Trump administration. Every nasty name in the book. Nobody said boo. Now there's somebody taking shots at a administration, and apparently that's supposed to get him fired. I don't get it.
Well,
I get it. I know.
did Carlson ever have any military background?
No. He's a full civilian.
What the fuck does he have any right criticizing anybody that's got the military background if you have not been in their shoes? Okay? You have no business criticizing them if you've not been in their shoes.
Well, he was criticizing his military bearing. He was criticizing the fact that he was pushing this liberal agenda, this critical race theory, on the modern day military. And with that, I agree with Tucker Carlson.
Well, on that one, yes. Okay, I was trying to keep you.
Apparently, I read too fast. He wasn't talking about anything military, troop deployment. He was talking about how this person is trying to push a liberal agenda on the U.S. Armed Forces.
Well, that person should not be there. Okay.
He's the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
I don't give a shit. He should not be there if he's getting involved in politics. And that's exactly what he's doing. The military is not supposed to be involved in politics. They're supposed to stay separate from it. I believe the politicians handle that. Okay? I don't know. I know you may not agree with me when I say he shouldn't be there, but if he's going to bring this kind of philosophy, he's going to corrupt and destroy the ability of the military to, ascertain a certain state of readiness.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, which in my particular case, thought is that makes him a traitor. And he should have been fired, but
They probably give him a promotion.
yeah. Oh, he'll get another promotion once the heat gets built up enough about this shit. He'll get another promotion. He'll probably become assistant to the vice president of some sort. On that. So, anyhow,
I'm about done. I'm too hot.
we gotta go. We gotta go 22 minutes or 32 minutes. Make it 7 o'clock.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I know how you feel about that. And I had something I was gonna read and I lost it. Your connection is unstable. Please wait while we try reconnecting. Okay, they're gonna play that game again.
Well, we started talking about critical race theory.
Yeah, we start talking about critical race. Welcome to Free America, the the First Amendment, dear guys. You can talk about critical race thing, but you can't have anybody rebut it or go against it, now can you? So if you do, we take you off. I'm not amazed about much of anything about you there, Bob, because if you knew about the boxes where the grease was for lubrication of the bearings, that told me that you were probably at one time worked for the railroad, so or had a real close connection to the railroad. Now, G.I. Joseph said we're 5x5 again, but I don't know what that's saying. But anyway, enough of the railroad. Let's. I didn't see Emmy. Don't see Emmy here. She's still okay. I didn't see her last week either. And while I'm thinking of it, the 16th and 17th of July, there's a gun show down in Shippensville, PA. That's about an hour's drive from here. It's a Friday afternoon and Saturday show. Mechanicsburg is a railroad town. So was Meadville at one time. So anyhow, a lot of that's gone by the wayside, folks. And what amazes me, well, Scotty's looking for his story, and since you guys brought it up, we used to have the shortest route from New York City to Chicago came right through Meadville with the railroad. That was the shortest route. And Meadville was almost dead point nuts on the center. 500 miles from New York, 500 miles from Chicago.
That explains why there's like a couple of different shots of politicians doing their whistle stops in Meadville, the big rail yards.
Yeah.
They were probably going from New York down around through the Cleveland, Ashtabula, all those different hubs, the whole Rust Belt, as it were.
Yeah, and but what gets me is when the old Penn Central went bankrupt and the government bailed them out and formed Amtrak. You never guess who they put in charge of the getting Amtrak up and running. The former vice presidents and presidents of the Penn Central Railroad.
Brilliant.
So.
Isn't that whole Amtrak thing a big pet project of our current president? I've heard him talking about how they're trying to eliminate emissions by improving mass transit and beefing up the railroad. But.
Yeah. So, I'm not sure if that's one of his pet projects, but I do know if you don't want to drive and you want to see the country, other than the fact that you go through some of the biggest cesspools in the country, take a train ride, and especially if you get in those big double-decker cars, like what they call gondolas. No, I'm sorry, not gondolas. anyway, double-decker cars, and
That was
let the
one.
driving go to them. And you drive and you go into the dining car and you get your breakfast, lunch, and dinner or whatever. Have a few drinks, sit at the windows watching, looking at the scenery. The only problem is, for the most part, when you're moving through there, you're moving
Pretty good clip.
pretty good clip, but you get to see more because you're not driving yourself and you're not flying over it.
That was one of the big novelties when I first got stationed in Germany, is the availability of train stations. And, GIs, that's all we wanted to do is go out and get schnockered, but we didn't, once you go to all the bars in our little town of Erlangen, you decided you wanted to go to Nuremberg, which is, if memory serves, it was about as far away as Erie is from Eagle. So like a 45-minute drive, an hour drive, and there's train stations everywhere. Hop a cab or walk, boom, takes you on the train. The only problem is you have to be back to the train station before the trains quit running, because they don't run the same route 24/7. Usually about 2-3 in the morning So I spent a couple of nights sleeping at a bus station or a train station until the trains started coming again in the morning.
Well, I see my mom and I like to watch during the week. We like to watch Wheel of Fortune and then Jeopardy. Okay, Jeopardy to try and see how much we don't know and that. But Wheel of Fortune, we like to watch it and try and guess the puzzle before the people do. But some of the prizes they have now put on there is a $7,000 Amtrak cross country tour for and that. So they have finally woke up to the fact that the railroad can make money other than just hauling freight. Okay, you haul people, the passenger trains. That's one thing, but to start putting on scenic tours, take advantage of your scenery and promote it, and then make a stop. And that, I know it's a hell of a thing. We had to pull over on a siding because we were headed west, and we had to pull over in the siding and wait until an eastbound train come by and cleared the track for us so we could finish on. But it was pre-programmed that when we got to this siding, you pulled over and you sat there and you waited for the other one to get. And all that has to be scheduled. Now you're talking about scheduling for thousands of trains running every day. That's mind-boggling. Yeah. Mind-boggling tour. Anyway, let's see. Okay, I'm not sure. Don't remember those phrases there, GI or Bob. But yeah, I was thinking of becoming a railroader when I was growing up, but my dad said no. He said it's headed to the toilets, and it's looked like it's starting to make a comeback. But don't know. The ballot's out on that yet. So, okay, Scott, what did you find? Did you find anything?
Not really. I was going to read one of these.
Oh, okay.
We were talking about the border and the vice president, so why not continue?
Yeah.
This is off of Newsmax. Vice President Max Morgan to Newsmax. Harris won't accomplish anything at border. Vice President Kamala Harris's trip to El Paso will not result in anything of substance, as she's traveling to the wrong location to spotlight the crisis, and the trip is only being made to address a political optic nightmare for the Biden administration. Former acting Border Patrol Commissioner Mark Morgan told Newsmax Friday. There's a reason she's going to El Paso, and she's 1,000 miles away from the epicenter, which is the Rio Grande Valley, or McAllen, where Sector 19 has apprehended over 275,000 illegal aliens. Morgan said on Newsmax's Wake Up America. We're going to go to facilities that are permanent, hardened facilities that are going to be less crowded, really in some areas, state-of-the-art facilities that they're going to go in, and again, it's going to present some really nice photo ops. But she's not going to go to the heart of the crisis, and here's it's not just what she's not going to. I don't think I've ever read a more convoluted sentence.
Read that again.
But she's not going to go to the heart of the crisis, and here's it's not just about what it's not going to see. Whatever.
I think she got her sentences mixed up.
Well, she was probably quoting verbatim, and the guy's probably speaking in a vernacular that didn't make any sense. All right. Americans should be demanding more than a series of photo ops and addressing optics from the White House, however, said Morgan. What they should be asking for is concrete actions that this administration is going to take to solve the border crisis and secure our borders. He said that's not what we're going to get. Harris also won't be asking any tough questions of border security officers or local law enforcement, including about drugs or the bodies of migrants that are being found. We're not going to hear the results of these questions, and we're not going to hear one concrete, substantive action from this administration to secure our border. El Paso also has far more of the tools for fighting illegal immigration, a robust strategic set of tools, policies, and resources that do not exist in the Rio Grande Valley, which also makes this.
That's why the governor of Texas, a couple of weeks ago, came out and said he was going to start continuing the building of the wall in Texas that Trump had started. So that was going to be reinstated. Now, whether the feds go to court and try and get them to stop it, who knows? But one court, I think it was a superior court, I don't think it was the Supreme Court, but one of the higher superior courts handed down a decision that Biden cannot direct or redirect the funds from the border wall. That the money has got to be used for building the border wall, because that's what it was delegated for. So, like I said, I don't think it was the Supreme Court, but I do think it was a superior court. So, anyway, people are starting to wake up. Now, tell you how much we're always thinking about the border. Well, this has something to do about the border too, but this comes out of Iowa. Okay. This is off of Newsmax, by the way, so I can't say that I wasn't plagiarizing them. Off of Newsmax. Governor Reynolds sending state troopers to assist border officials. Governor Kim Reynolds, Republican of Iowa, has approved sending Iowa State troopers to assist officers at the southern border. Reynolds on Thursday said she responded to the request for the help by Governor Greg Abbott, Republican of Texas, because Iowa law enforcement agencies had encountered drugs and weapons that were smuggled across the U.S.-Mexico borders, the Des Moines Register reported. My first responsibility is to the health and safety of Iowans and the humanitarian crisis in our nation's southern border is affecting all 50 states, Reynolds said in the statement, according to the Register. The rise in drugs, human trafficking, and violent crime has become unsustainable. Iowa has no choice but to act, and it's why I'm honoring Texas Emergency Management's assistant compact following assurances from the Iowa Department of Public Safety that it will not compromise our ability to provide all necessary public safety services to Iowans. The Register reported that the Iowa is expected to send 25 to 30 sworn officers to Texas for about 2 weeks. Unfortunately, I'm putting this. Unfortunately, 2 weeks is probably not enough, but it's at least at least they help if every state would send officers down for 2 weeks. They don't have to go on a rotation basis uh, every 2 or 3 years. Rotating the troops out for everything. And besides, it'd be good training for some of the other stuff they have to put up with. Anyway, for official safety purposes, the Iowa State Police does not provide specific operational details of the mission. Right. Don't tell anybody what you're supposed to do. Sergeant Alex Fink, a public information officer for the Iowa Department of Public Safety, said in a statement, because if you leak it to the press, that this is their mission statement, they're going to blast it all over the press. And what's going to happen? Drug cartels and the people that are doing the smuggling are going to see it and try and circumvent it. And there are certain things that has to be done that people don't need to know about it being ahead of time, because of the simple fact the biggest leak in this country is the press. And during World War II, there were several phrases, but there was one: loose lips sink ships. We figured that one out. Okay. Abbott and Governor Doug Ducey, Republican of Arizona, sent a letter to all state governors on June 10th requesting assistance. The letter asked that available law enforcement resources in their state be sent to help secure the border as illegal border crossings, apprehensions, and unaccompanied migrant children in federal custody increase. The two governors, each of whom has decided a state of emergency and deployed National Guard to the troops to their border, invoked Emergency Management Assistance Compact that allows states to assist each other in time of disaster or emergency. Abbott has included $1 billion in the Texas state budget to strengthen border security, which includes building the wall. Okay. Last week, DeSantis said Florida would send law enforcement officers to Arizona. Okay. See, now the states are starting to fall in line. Mostly there seems to be the ones that are Republicans. I haven't heard anything yet on the Democrats. Now, this request was sent to all 50 states. So that includes the Republicans and the Democrats. Now, I haven't seen anything around here in PA. Have you seen anything in the news that PA is going to do anything like that?
No, I have not.
Yeah. We got that dog in the White House. Well, it's the outhouse. The dog in the state capitol down there. And I don't. You know how much more? How long he's got to go?
Who?
Wolf.
I don't.
No. Okay.
Too long. You were talking about how the for operational security they're not going to release certain things. That reminds me of when I was in Desert Storm and all that. Daryl and Clan had made videotapes of some of the newscasts and briefings just to show me and reminisce and whatnot. I just remember being dumbfounded, as were you, just some of the questions that these reporters were asking these generals. So, where exactly will you be placing the most of your tanks, and how many men do you... You don't tell that shit on... What kind of silliness?
Well, that shows you how stupid the press is. I mean, they are stupid.
And they were indignant they didn't get the answers they wanted.
Yeah. I don't know if they didn't care was going to get GIs killed. or whether they were indifferent to whether it was. They just wanted to get the story, be the first one to put the shit in the fan, so to speak.
And for them, it's just a photo op.
Yeah.
I think I recall something about when they started embedding these different reporters with these troop organizations, and they were having problems because these reporters had like sat phones, and they were giving real-time details to their editors, who in turn were giving real-time news reports.
And if anybody had any sophisticated equipment, they could tune in on it.
Yeah, I mean, it was like on TV.
Yeah. That's, well, just like in Vietnam. They had.
I don't remember that.
No, you don't. Well, I remember. News media every night had stuff going on from the war in Vietnam, including briefings, and they were wanting to know. Where our next move was going to be, how many troops we were going to send there, how long they were going to be there, where are they going, who are they going to reinforce, say like up at Quezon. They're going up to reinforce the Marines at Quezon or whatever. And personally, I feel the press has no business being anywhere near the front line. Nowhere near the front line. Okay? And they should have done what they did in World War II when they did start going to the front line, was only allow one, and he did a press pool. He got information, it was the press. And the idea was to keep the enemy from finding out your tactics or next moves. And that's one of the things that got MacArthur in trouble in Korea. Because now when he was fighting the war in Korea, he was fighting under the auspices of the United Nations. United Nitwits, but the United Nations. And in the Charter of the United Nations, the military commander of the United Nations troops would always be a Russian or from the Soviet bloc. Well, being the Soviet bloc is supposedly no longer existent, that means that it will be a Russian. But if Korea make a movement against the enemy, he had to send that information through the chain of command to happen to be a Russian communist, or Soviet communist, he in turn send it to his handlers in Moscow, who then in turn send it to their not so close friends China, who would then send it down to the North Koreans, and they would be able to anticipate when MacArthur's troops were going to come, where they were going to come from, how many were going to come from there. So, when he pulled off Incheon, he didn't tell the UN troops or the United Nations. He just did it. And for a while, it was a great success. And it beat the enemy back, but then we got the volunteers come down, all the Chinese. And that. So, make a long story short, you cannot put the information of what your troops are going to do on the front page of the paper. You're going to get somebody's kid killed.
Yep.
Okay. So, let's see. Yeah, it looks like we got about 7 minutes. We're going to call it quits at 7 o'clock, kids. We got 7 minutes to go. And, our buffer, or my misconnection thing went left. Nope, it's back. It went, it's back. It's back, it's went. So, anyhow, what was I going to say? Oh, that's the same thing with the leaks of the to the press from the president. Okay, from his office or from somebody in his staff.
Anonymous sources.
Yeah. Okay. The president, not that he needs to keep everything top secret, when he's dealing with especially military issues. Okay. there again, these people need to keep their mouth shut and not leak it to the press. Yeah, I have low regard for the press and such, low to no regard for the press because they're not the press anymore. They're scuzz bucket writers. Okay.
People looking for the next big juicy detail to bolster their career.
Make a name for himself, literally. So, anyhow.
Here's a little interesting ditty about our beloved leaders on the West. Car burglars rise 753% in San Francisco as city reopens. The reopening of San Francisco, California means restaurants and hotels are back in business, but criminals have also stepped up their activities, burglarizing cars at a 753% higher rate in June over last month. Well, you got about 90% of the freaking population is homeless. They're homeless or mentally ill. They're destabilized by drugs.
Out of work, whatever.
Living on the street.
You know, that brings me to something I was reading. News media was making a comment about how crime rate was on the rise. They were trying to figure out why it was on the rise and why it was on the rise in certain big cities. And I'm sitting there, you dumb bastards. You mean to tell me you don't pay attention to what you're writing in your news? The reason crime rate is on the rise in certain cities is those certain cities cut the police budget, cut the police force. Okay? So the criminals know there's nobody there to stop them, so they can go play. And then Washington wants to take and lock all your guns up. Well, they did. They passed the legislation. If you live in the state of Washington, all your guns have to be locked in a safe with trigger guard locks in your house. Locked in a safe with trigger guard locks. That's so the criminal can't get them. Well, if the criminal can't get them, you can't get them either, can you? Well, we'll be saving people's lives. Who? Another dirty ass criminal? Got a criminal rap sheet of causing mayhem and
but it's not his fault.
Yeah, it's not his fault.
It's not their fault because
it's not his fault because he didn't stay in school and get an education.
Well, the education is systemically racist, so
yeah,
it's not their fault either. It's the other people's fault.
It's just like apple pie.
Oh, don't get me started.
Yeah. Tomatoes. I was talking, I think it was you the other day. Well, if apple pie is racist, then tomatoes ought to be too, because tomatoes were not native to this country, and the settlers brought the tomatoes over with them and chased the Indians off the land or took the land from them so they could plant their tomatoes. So that means tomatoes are racist. So no more ketchup, no more tomato juice. Okay? No more Bloody Marys for those that like alcohol.
Bloody Mary's a good hangover drink.
Yeah.
I must admit.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan.
I think it's because the tomatoes have a lot of antioxidants in it, and it helps unclog your brain.
And you got that little bit of alcohol in there to...
Jack put here that they're putting up cameras out west at 6 to watch the... Watch out for the homeless. It's $6,500 a pop.
They'll get taken down and sold to your local pawn shops.
Yeah. Well, I would take it down if they put one up there that close to my property. I'd sneak up behind it. So
I'd say that too, but I've seen the way both of us climb up and down ladders. We know. It'll take us 45 minutes just to get off the second or third rung.
We have to get somebody to put a pulley system up there with the seats so we can pull ourselves up.
Yeah.
And that, so. Anyhow, well, that brings us in 2 minutes to that brings us to quitting time, guys.
Well, thanks for listening to us.
Yeah.
I know it's a short one.
We will not be here Independence Day. Again, we will not be here Independence Day, but we should theoretically, Lord willing, the creeks don't rise, be here the uh, week after.
Unfortunately, I believe I will be working that Sunday. I know I generally only work Monday through Friday because of the way scheduling works, but 4th of July's Independence Day is my holiday to work. So I'll have to go in on a Sunday, which hasn't happened for a long
I'm talking
time.
about the Sunday after. I'm not going to be down here anyway.
I know. I'm just saying.
I'm going to the mountains and I don't know. Maybe blow a few things. Okay, end the stream. There you go. We ended that.